It is Tuesday, January 24th, and the Give and Go show is back in your life. My name is Griffin Queen, and as always, I'm joined by Matt Modi and Matt Ferentinos.
What up?
Before we get going, make sure that you like us on YouTube. If you're not already subscribed, click the subscribe button. If you have anything you want us to talk about on a future episode, or if you have takes that you think were egregious from a previous episode, make sure you comment below. And as the episode goes on, comment below as well. You can also hit us on Twitter at Give Go Show. And on Instagram, I think it's also at Give Go Show. It might be the Give and Go Show. I'm not really sure. It's not that difficult to search for.
You'll find it.
Yeah. And if you enjoy the episode or you enjoy any of our previous episodes or any of our subsequent episodes, make sure you're sharing the show with your friends. I've been saying this for a while that I'm going to put this on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that stuff soon. I'm going to keep saying that for a while. I think I'm going to get around to it. I have not done it yet, but soon enough, this will also be available in audio formats. So we will get that going for y'all. Last Tuesday, maybe whatever the 19th was, Thursday, I don't even know. We recorded our first half of our kind of catch up on the over-unders that we did at the beginning of the season. So we're about halfway through the NBA season. So last week we touched on the first 15 teams. This week, we're going to touch on the latter 15 teams. However, before we do that, we always talk about media and what's going on in our lives and the dumb shit that we're consuming, all that stuff before we get going. Oftentimes, we talk about cartoons, we talk about anime, we talk about like superhero movies, shit like that. Have you guys watched Ginny Georgia on Netflix?
No,
I have not.
Is that like the number one show behind that 90s show right now or something? Or like number two show right now?
It might be. I think I don't.
I just recently saw.
It's a soap opera.
It.
Let me tell you guys right now.
Okay.
It's a soap opera. This is some CW ass shit with this white.
I did love Arrow for that reason. It felt like a superhero soap.
It doesn't have quite the violence of Arrow, but it does honestly have some surprising amount of violence. It's like a little bit like Euphoria, but people aren't getting like naked on screen, and no one's like supposed to be attracted to these high school kids, despite the fact that these high schoolers are, in their actual mid-20s. It's this mom, 30 years old, had a daughter when she was 15. It's kind of like the modern Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
But she doesn't like come from money, and she has definitely like killed people in her past. It's incredible. I'm very dialed into it. Julia was watching it probably like a week or two ago. She was watching season 1, and I was definitely making fun of it the first few episodes, just like kind of watching it out of the corner of my eye. I think by like episode 4 or 5, I was sitting down and watching the show with her.
It's classic.
Yeah, which is what happened with her in Attack on Titan. So now Ginny Georgia is my Attack on Titan.
Any recognizable actors in that? Like,
is there any recognizable actors?
I saw it on Netflix. I thought I recognized someone in it.
You know who is in it? There's a character who plays the mayor of the town that they live in, and he was the original quarterback in Friday Night Lights. He's like the one who broke his back or whatever.
Oh, Jason Street. Yeah.
That guy. He's in the show. He's a pretty major character. I'm sure they've all done stuff. Like, I'm sure a lot of them have done other productions. I don't really recognize them. Everyone is incredibly good looking.
Yeah, I was gonna say these are some attractive, not high schoolers.
Yeah, believe me. I was like, they're like 20. They're like Julia's age. They're like 26-year-olds. I'm like, no high schooler on earth has ever looked like this.
Yeah, it was like in Smallville when they had like tried to pass Tom Welling off as like a freshman.
He was 30. Yeah, he was like 30 when that show started. He was gigantic. He was a huge
Are you
human
stupid
being.
or something?
No high schooler has that kind of muscle tone.
I know, especially a freshman.
Yeah. It's a good show. I would highly recommend it. Lots of twists and turns, a lot of good drama. It seems cheesier than it is. Like, it definitely seems like some CW ass shit, but it genuinely got a lot of episodes about like mental health and divorce and all this stuff that you're going to deal with in a standard teen drama, but they deal with it a little bit more mature than a lot of those shows do. And everyone's just like charismatic, which is good in a show. Like the majority of the characters, at least at different points, are likable, and then at other times you're like, I fucking hate this person. Like, this person sucks.
Typical soap opera.
Typical soap opera.
Yeah, just drama.
Typical TV show.
Yeah,
but highly recommend.
I have two comments on that. Number one, I have a similar show that is incredible that I really liked, Sex Live of College Girls on HBO.
Okay,
People
I
have
think I saw
recommended
an
that to
ad
me
for that,
before.
yeah.
Legitimately very good, very creative, very funny, legitimately good show. And then
Sure.
not related to this at all, but I'm late to this, but I recently started Rings of Power. So I watched the first episode.
What do you
Haven't watched
think?
it. Haven't
Rings of
watched
Power.
it.
I mean, I think I'll like it. I know it got like, I know a lot of people didn't like
I'm like
it.
4 episodes in, and yeah, I mean, I'm just curious what you think of it, because I like, all I heard is that it was the worst thing in the world. So I was like, well, let me just go.
Because
in
it has a
and
female
like,
protagonist.
Galadriel.
Yeah, people were very upset.
people just
about
hate that. Of
Yeah.
course.
People hate women, dude. I don't know.
You're
if you know
telling me
that.
it's not the 35-year-old white man? He's
Yeah.
not the protagonist?
Yeah.
Like in Last of Us? That's why I like Last of Us.
Last of Us was good. I haven't watched the second one yet, but I'm
The
watching
second
that
one is
tonight.
great too.
I'm watching that tonight.
I know that I'm not going to be able to do it week to week, so I'm waiting until the first season's done before I watch it.
Just binge it.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think it's
'Cause
a good
like when I
week-to-weeker
played the
since
first
so
game,
long.
when I played the first game, I couldn't. I wasn't like sitting down and playing it for an hour and then waiting until the next week. I played that shit straight through over the course of like 4 days, and then I was sad for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Typical like post anything you finish sadness. I get it.
Yeah.
I say I'm trying not to ruin it for the people I watch it with. I keep saying like press X to accept mission at like different parts. It's like,
Because you're
definitely
a
I see it in
loser.
the eyes of the video game, because the first episode, all I'll say is like it's very faithful, because the cutscenes are so
Sure.
cinematic in the game too. Like you could literally probably watch like the YouTube video of all the cutscenes of Last of Us, and it's like an incredible piece of art. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
in
we're also
itself.
at the point like this isn't like a game that was made in like 2002 where they
Yeah.
end up having like a movie or a TV show based off of it. And it's like, oh my God, everything's so lifelike because they're real actors. Like now games just look like this.
And they
Like,
have real actors.
yeah, everyone's doing mocap. Like the voice actors are all incredible. Like they have legitimate Hollywood studios working on like the cutscenes. The level between like an HBO show and a big budget video game at this point it's so similar in terms of what it's going to cost them to make and the amount of time they're going to put into it. Honestly, the
So it's
game's going
like-
to take longer.
the Lara Croft Tomb Raider, like the pixelated version.
And then we got
It's like-
Angelina Jolie.
Speaking of video games, did you guys ever play the South Park games when they came out?
Yes, Stick of Truth.
No, I've
Stick of
heard
Truth.
great things about
Oh,
it.
they're
I
Those
never got it.
games.
They're
I think
incredible.
we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah,
it
they're
was Stick
great.
of Truth and then like the
The fractured
butthole.
Yeah.
Fractured
Fractured
butthole.
Butthole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they just announced that they like teased that they're making a third one.
Oh,
dope.
nice.
Yeah, I need to get around to it.
They're
I didn't play
phenomenal.
the second one.
They're very quick too, so it's not like a huge investment. I think the first one was like you could beat in like 10 hours, which is for video. It sounds like a lot of time for a video game. It's not that long.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
really not. Yeah.
The second one's
Yeah.
not
Now
much
you've got
longer.
like every single Ubisoft open world game is like 300 hours to collect
Yeah.
everything
Yeah, exactly.
because
So
it's a job at that point.
it's a quick play. I recommend. I mean, it's like you're playing
Yeah.
through a South Park movie. It's hilarious. It's very funny. And
I
it's
put
clever.
like 50 hours into For Honor, so I could probably beat South Park Stick of Truth.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what
All
that
right.
game is, but it sounds right.
It's a good one. We'll talk
It's a
about
pretty
it
fun
off-
game, yeah.
We'll talk about it off the pod. It causes some frustration, but it is.
It
a
was
really
something
fun
that I
game.
tried to get myself into because we're trying to get our friends to play video games and nobody plays it anymore. And I bought like a DLC.
We can get back
and
to
put
it, Matt.
50
If you want to
hours
get
into
back to it, we'll get back
Yeah,
to it.
we
Don't
could.
your veiled shots. Your veiled shots. All right, let's jump back over to the NBA. Ginny and Georgia recommended Sex Lies of College Girls. Apparently, you recommend that. I'm not sure about Rings of Power. I don't know if that was a recommendation or not.
Well,
I will-
not a recommendation, just a comment that I'm one episode into it.
Got it. All right. So I will check it out at some point because it's Lord of the Rings. So last week we left off with the Lakers, my favorite team, second favorite team, whatever it may be. Not having a great year.
They
We
love
haven't talked
trading
about them
with
anymore.
your favorite team.
They did, yes. Rui Hachimura now on the Lakers. A lot more people are going to see that he's a fairly average bench scorer. So good luck
People
to him. I
are
hope.
very mad about that trade for the Wizards side of it.
It's a bad trade for the Wizards. It is a bad trade for the Wizards. Rui is better.
They gave him a
than
first
second
pick
round
too.
picks.
Like that's nuts. For
do you mean?
Kendrick Nunn. Like didn't the Wizards give the Lakers Rui and a first round pick, and then the
No,
Wizards
no,
got
no.
no first. Yeah, there's
No,
no.
they
first.
they have a swap on a second round pick.
okay. I thought it was the 9th pick.
He was the 9th pick.
Rui was the 9th pick.
Rui was the 9th pick. Yes, yes, he is a bad 9th pick. At the time that he was picked, that was a bad choice. He was
Yeah,
like a 22-year-old kind of finished product who was not that good at Gonzaga. Like I don't really want to get into it too much. It's not a good trade, but like he is a good six man. Like he's better than Kendrick Nunn. He's better than second round picks, but the Wizards are awful at taking advantage of. We'll talk about the Wizards at the end of this because they're going to be one of the last teams that we talk about.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the Memphis Grizzlies. Vegas had them at 48.5. Ferentinos had the over. Modi and I both had the under. Currently, they're 31-16, so they're far ahead of what their projection was for the year. Ferentinos is the only one who's correct at the moment on this team.
Hell yeah! Say that,
Ferentinos. What did you see that we didn't?
I mean, just the continuation of their team chemistry, I think, is the biggest thing. Last year they were like something like 20-1 without Ja Morant, who has continued to just play excellent basketball when he's been in. He's also had some injury like up and downs this season, kind of like a lot of different star players, but Brooks has really stepped it up and started to play well. Jaron Jackson Jr. literally might be like the best player like per minute on defense right now. He's just swatting everything and is really being an impact player on that team. But I think it's just like kind of like the Celtics, like it's just the same group of guys, the same core of players that just know how to play together and are doing a really good job of it. I think they have the regular season formula down and are going to continue to be one of those top teams in the West as long as they have their core group of players that they have now.
Yeah, I guess I went the other way on it, thinking that there was going to be some regression. They kind of came out of nowhere and got as good as they did pretty quickly. I figured we were probably going to see some jaw injuries this year. So far, I mean, he's missed a few games, but he hasn't missed that many. I think he's missed 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
Desmond Bane has missed a lot of games, but they've been able to play without him, without any issues. Yeah, the Grizzlies are honestly better than I expected them to be this year. I thought that they were going to be a lot closer to a 45 win team than what they're on right now, which is like a 55 to 60 win team.
Yeah, I think part of my logic was like, wasn't Jaron Jackson Jr. hurt at the beginning of the year? He missed.
He was. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I thought that injury was going to be longer than it was. And last time he came back from an injury, he was like a shell of himself. So I think that was the COVID year, I think, if I remember, or the year the following season. I can't remember. I just remember when he came back, it was like he was shooting like 40% from 3, and then he got hurt, and then he came back and he couldn't hit anything.
This year, I think like he was back by like Thanksgiving, I want to say.
Yeah.
And he hit the ground running.
And he's been phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I still worry, like, is he going to be able to stay on the floor and play playoff minutes because he fouls so much? But for the regular season, this is one of those predictions where like some of them I got wrong. I can accept my like reasoning for being wrong. This one I'm kind of kicking myself for because it's like a young team. As Ferentino said, they returned pretty much everybody important. And they're like the old Raptors in terms of like draft and develop. Like every move they make just seems to hit. And that team's just going to gobble up regular season wins. So it's one of those ones where you like look back and you're like, what was my logic for that again?
I do want to say we're not going to get to this team just yet, but we had to think a lot of similar logic with them in the Suns. And essentially the opposite thing is happening for the Suns. And the three of us made the opposite picks on that. Ferentinos took the over for them.
Yeah.
Modi and I took the under. I guess we just got wrong. So in that instance, we got it right. In this instance, we got it wrong based on like which young team was going to sustain the jump that they took.
Yeah.
Granted, the Suns
Chris Paul
also
sucks too.
Yeah, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, who could have predicted him being injured.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Heat. Vegas had him at 49.5. Ferentinos, you had the over. Modi and I both had the under. Right now they're at 26 and 22. So it's looking like the under is the more likely of the two outcomes. The Heat have obviously dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Kyle Lowry, I'm not really sure if he's a basketball player anymore. Bam's had some stuff. Jimmy Butler obviously had some stuff. Tyler Hero's had stuff at different points. Duncan Robinson doesn't play.
Does he even exist? Like, talk about who is even a basketball
collecting
player.
the bag. You know, he's still getting paid. What,
he get Chandler Parsons
a year
money
or something like that?
I was just going to say, it reminds me of Chandler Parsons, who dude just disappeared.
Yeah. You know, and I'm not going to knock him for it.
I mean, that sounds like the dream.
You know, I think Modi, what you and I likely expected with the Heat was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, they were probably going to be a relatively average regular season team and that they were going to try and turn it on in the playoffs. That's kind of what we're seeing so far. There were points this season where they were below average, but they're kind of rounding into form a little bit. That said, I don't think that they're going to beat 49.5 wins.
Yeah, my logic was like last year, they pretty much had the same injury, bad luck last year that they're having this year. But for whatever reason, last year they just kept winning, even with their like Jimmy Butler missed a ton of time, Bam missed a ton of time, Kyle Lowry will just never play basketball again, as you said. And I just had a hard time believing they're going to be able to have that amount of injuries and then still continue to win at the rate they did last year. Like that was my entire logic. So I was wrong about the Grizzlies. At least like this one, I'll hang my hat on, because also part of it was the East got a lot better. Like the Celtics up until this point last year were not the Celtics that we remember. Like the Cavs are a lot better. The Sixers are a lot better. The Bucks are like having a weird year, but they're still the Bucks.
But they're still really good. Like
I know,
that's the thing. The Bucks lost a ton of games, and I'm looking at the record, and I'm like, this is 64% win pace. Like this is incredible.
It is incredible. And like they barely had Chris Middleton. So, I mean, the Bucks are incredible. I think there were people are sleeping on them.
Giannis
is amazing.
Yeah. You have one player who's so far and away better than 99% of guys. Yeah. Everything else fails. You give that guy the ball.
Yeah. So yeah, but back to the Heat. Yeah. Part of that was just like, you can't trust Jimmy Butler to play a lot. You can't trust, I mean, Hero, obviously I think he's been kind of relatively healthy. I can't remember anything major.
He missed a little bit, but he's been, I think, their healthiest player, and he's playing like a borderline all-star.
He's playing well, yeah. I mean, he just got the bag and he's earned it. But yeah, but like just missing Jimmy Butler, missing Kyle Lowry, Bam has always kind of been nicked up and not a huge, like Jokic is an Iron Man in the regular season. Like Bam's not necessarily that type of guy. So I just think that the East took a lot of steps forward. A lot of teams did. In the Heat, they don't necessarily took a step back in terms of their roster, but you can't expect to have that many important players miss and continue to win at the pace they did.
And you can argue that they're two best players. If you want to argue that Butler and Lowry are the two best players, they're both on the wrong side of 32. Lowry's like 36. And Butler is, I think, 33 or 34.
He's got Tibbs legs. So like,
they're not young. They've got a ton of mileage on them.
Yeah.
And, mileage is fine if you're on the Heat and you're 26 years old. That team is not necessarily the best one for an old player, just with how hard their workouts are.
Yeah. Heat culture. Kyle Lowry he's ignoring Heat culture.
Yeah.
Did he ever really, partake in Heat culture?
No,
I don't think so. I don't think his ass ever got less fat. Like, I don't know.
Well, didn't Pat Riley like after the year say that he was like disappointed in Kyle Lowry's like conditioning? I'm almost positive. I
think so. Which, funnily enough, was also the argument against Kyle Lowry early in his career with like the Rockets and all that. It was his conditioning and his attitude. He figured the attitude out, but the boy is he's thick.
You can't blame someone for liking donuts. I will respect him.
I had two today. Like, I'm not going to get mad about it, but
it's way easier to just slide in front of someone and take a charge and not actually play defense. So maybe that's what he's got the body for. It's taking
to bring back what we talked about last episode. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Bucks. We just talked about him a little bit. Vegas had him at 53.5. Every one of us took the over. Right now, they're on pace for 52, so they're like right there. I think we can all kind of agree when Middleton comes back, their pace is likely going to shift back to a better one. They've lost a lot of games because they don't have any shooting. He comes back, you get another 25 point per game guy. Any disagreement there on the Bucks?
No, and then they're just so good on defense. Like they play like they can excel and win games playing like gross basketball. Because like Drew Holiday and Giannis are just such good defenders. Even when they're not shooting well, they still got a chance. Brook Lopez has continued to be a beast. Nets legend, Brook Lopez. But yeah, I mean, this team.
Is he still their highest all-time scorer?
Yeah, until KD does it like next season or something. Like
yeah, right. Because it was like a bunch of seasons of like 20 points per game or 18 points per game.
But Brook Lopez was a stud. He was literally like 20 and 10 every night and like got it easy. So he definitely got buckets. I wish that, and also the Lakers are the team I always think of because before he went to the Bucks, he was on the Lakers. And they did not play him like shooting threes and stuff. And it's like, damn, what a missed opportunity. Him with
they didn't utilize him correctly, and they traded Zubac for Mike Muscala.
Yeah, I'll never understand that.
A guy who I don't think is in the NBA anymore.
Oh no, he is a Sixers legend. He currently plays for the Thunder.
Does he play for the Thunder? Okay.
Do you know why? Did you know that story of why he's a Sixers legend?
I don't.
I mean, it's very deep into Sixers Twitter, so I'm not surprised. But the bubble year.
Yeah, I'm not that deep. I can't even deal with the shallow end of Sixers Twitter. It's very self-hating.
But it's like an ongoing joke that like he's a Sixers legend because the bubble year, the Sixers had, I think the Heat's stayed someone's first round pick. And basically it came down to one of the last games in the bubble. If Oklahoma City won, they would get the pick. If Oklahoma City lost, they wouldn't get the pick. Basically it came down to that. And he hit like back-to-back threes in the final 30 seconds of the game. And that pick turned into Tyrese Maxey.
So, man.
Yeah. So he's just like people, there's a statue of Nick Foles. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one of Mike Muscala in a couple of years.
That's some butterfly effect shit.
Isn't that
just
crazy?
Like how the franchise ends up differently, man.
2 meaningless threes in the bubble game gets them Tyrese freaking Maxey. It's crazy.
One of the Nets first round picks that they traded for Gerald Wallace from the Bobcats turned into Damian Lillard.
I'm not going to say it ends up the same way or anything like that, but the Suns going 8-0 in the bubble without Kelly Oubre is very likely why Kelly Oubre is no longer on the Suns, because they were like, we straight up don't need this guy. And then they got rid of him and then they become a much better team.
It's amazing how every single team gets better when they don't have Kelly Oubre.
It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart so much. I love him.
I wanted him to be good.
But they get less attractive. So
they get significantly less attractive. It's not even a competition. Yeah, get him and Kevin Love on the same team together. My God. Let's move on to one of Kevin Love's former teams, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Vegas had them at 47.5. And as Ferentino's just noted, every one of us smashed the over. They are currently 24-25 on a 40-win pace. Now, here's what I'm going to say. They could still get it together when Karl Anthony Towns comes back. They've missed him, Gobert, and who else? They missed D'Angelo Russell for a little bit. They missed Anthony Edwards for a little bit. But between Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, I think between those two guys, they've missed 25 to 30 games. If you get the two of them back and somehow they're able to get a little bit going by the end of the year, I'm not going to say they're going to hit the over on this, but I don't think that they're going to be a below 500 team. I think that you're probably looking at a 42 to 45 win team. Smashing the over, that was a mistake. I should not have put money on that one. But the Wolves are the lowest end of good or the highest end of bad. They're not what the Wolves normally are, I would say.
I mean, they're definitely not as good as the Wolves were last year. That team was actually pretty good. This is one of the ones I'm like, looking back, it's like, of course, I mean, you can make the argument that, when Kat and Rudy Gobert get back, they'll figure it out, but they hadn't had anything figured out when they were playing together. Like they were a 500 to below 500 team.
When they had everyone healthy.
With the two of them in the lineup. So looking back, it's like, of course, Karl Anthony Towns, who can't play defense, and Rudy Gobert, who just clogs up everything on offense. Like, of course, that marriage wasn't going to work. So it was easy to buy into the regular season narrative of it. But then looking back, it's like, no shit, that wasn't going to work.
We really, and I think this is partially my fault. I think I was really selling this one because I wanted to believe in the Timberwolves. The regular season's not working out. So
they have
the
a lot to
playoffs
believe
definitely
in,
aren't going to
though.
work out.
I believed it in the regular season.
I wanted to believe that Minnesota was going to have a good team because it's been so long outside of that one Jimmy Butler year where you can look at them and say, this is a good team.
I mean, Anthony Edwards just had those 2 ridiculous dunks. Like he still has a
against the Rockets.
Ceiling.
And they just lost to the Rockets last night or 2 nights.
Did they?
I think it was last night.
God. Oh yeah. They finally broke their 13 losing streak or whatever. Yeah, you're right.
That's not good.
Yeah, Timberwolves are a joke. That's just a total joke.
And if they hadn't, they'd be over 500, and this would be a little bit closer to being on pace. So we biffed it, guys. We biffed it. Let's not talk about them too much.
Let's go to a smash that we one that we called.
Yeah,
that's
one that we
right
called
now.
that's working out. Yeah, we all took the over on 43.5 for the Pelicans. Right now, they're 26-21. Projected to win 45 games. We're not super far beyond what Vegas projected. Things could change, particularly when everyone gets healthy. If Brandon Ingram ever plays a game of basketball again. But this Pelicans team is, so far very good. They look like they're going to be very good for the playoffs as well, which is the important thing. Any thoughts on them, Modi, Ferentinos?
CJ McCollum is a dog. He's killing
it.
I love that he's been excelling. I mean, the Blazers are doing okay when Dame's been healthy too, although I thought it was hilarious that the only highlight I saw from the game the other night was the Pat Bev.
That was so funny.
But then when Russell Westbrook just had the most disgusting 3-point attempt, it was like an air ball. The guy didn't even move and wasn't under the rim when he caught it. And it's just brutal. And then Dame just picks it up, shoots the most disrespectful logo 3, and it goes in. And that was part of I think it might have tied the biggest deficit in a quarter in Lakers history.
Yep.
And then they ended
30
up coming back and winning
32,
that
I think.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
They
was
came back. They stormed
Like,
back.
That was a
yeah.
wild box score.
And
A
the thing
wild-
is, they were winning the first quarter. They were up by a lot in the first,
Mhm.
and then they were down by a lot at the half.
and then they went up by, it was like, I didn't watch that game because it was on late, but I remember at the second quarter was like when I went to bed, and I was like, oh, typical Lakers. Then I woke up.
I can
Oh, no,
tell
they
you,
won.
dude, I was punching air.
I
towards
can
the end of
only
that game.
imagine.
I was having myself a fucking time, and I was like, this is the win that gets these guys back on track, which I've said after literally every win.
I mean, if you can't convince yourself that the most recent win will be the win, then there's no point in being a fan.
How on brand is it that when we're talking about the Pelicans, we end up talking about the Lakers?
About the Lakers.
Lakers and LeBron James.
But also, Pelicans fans can't not talk about the Lakers when they talk about the Pelicans, because half of their core is former
came
Lakers.
from those Lakers.
Yeah, and their ability to acquire assets were because of the Lakers. I mean, they are what they are because the Lakers went trade now to get AD, and it seems like it's working out for both teams.
So, and they're tied to the Lakers pick. So their Lakers are winning some games. They're definitely not making the Wemby pick definite, but
yeah, I don't think unless the odds end up being super weird, because now like the lottery odds are a little bit different for the bottom six. They could end up being like bottom like six. I don't see them ever getting below the Spurs or
The Rockets.
The Rockets. There's no chance they get below the Rockets.
Yeah, the bottom three
or the Hornets. They're not going to get below the Hornets.
The bottom
Magic,
three teams in
Hornets.
terms of record have equal chance of getting the one pick. Like that was the lottery reform that the NBA did, whatever, 10 years ago, whenever that was.
My big hope is that he does not go to Charlotte, because they are going to waste the shit out of him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
That's the worst reality.
We'd get some sick Jordan gear.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know where he's signing.
Sure, you're right.
And some funny clips. Maybe Michael Jordan will like slap him in the head on the sideline.
Yeah, he'd be reaching up.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Knicks. Vegas had him at 38.5. Each one of us took the under.
Yeah,
they're probably going to beat that. They're at 25-23, so they're 43 win pace. Things could change in the next few games. Very easy to drop below that at this point because they're right there at 500. But the Knicks are better than I expected them to be.
Yeah, yep. I mean, I haven't looked at their like remaining strength of schedule. I still kind of think that they're gonna possibly drop below this, mostly because like they're 25-23, but didn't they go on like a 14-game winning streak or something? Didn't they have like an absurd win streak?
Them and the Nets had a pretty long win streak at the same time.
So and it was like broken right.
I don't think it was 14 games, but I think it might have been like 8.
Yeah, I remember it being,
which is a lot.
Yeah,
and they've been a good home team. And Jalen Brunson has been a better starting option than I expected him to be. Like he as their number one scorer, and he's been great at it. And they might make some trades, but they also could get rid of some of the guys that are winning them games.
Julius Randle's playing better too. He had like a kind of a really good season like 2 years ago. Last year had kind of a drop off. And I think the addition of Brunson has kind of taken the pressure off and allows him to excel a bit too, but he's been playing better.
I think that's a thing with Julius Randle. He's like every other year talented, but the bad years are really bad.
Well, like Dak Prescott, every other game talented.
Well, Julius Randle seems like the type of guy who like his work ethic can come and go. Wasn't that a thing that like was an issue with him? Was that like his work ethic? And then of course 2 years ago,
that was an issue when he was with the Lakers, was that they didn't think he was developing correctly on the defensive end. And that's why they did not value him at all.
Yeah, and you can't really, like, I think the Lakers made the right call, like the right evaluation, because his best year was in a contract year. There's no surprise. And the literal next year after that, he wasn't as good. It's like it doesn't take Sherlock to put the dots together of like, oh, he tried really hard when he was up for a contract and then he didn't care as much. Like that's how the impression I get from Julius Randle, which is why he's
one of many players that has occurred for that we can't it's expected at this point that guys are going to be better in contract years.
The ultimate is the Albert Hainsworth. I think that's the greatest.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. Let's not talk about that right now.
Dude,
I don't think my sister listens to the show or watches this show, but if she did, she'd be punching shit right now.
Literally,
he hates that fat piece of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's just a bad human.
He's still alive, right?
Yeah, he's not the late. He's alive.
I could have sworn somebody. I could have sworn he like fell into a coma at something or something.
We're just shitting on this dude's grave right now. It's like, oh, what?
No, I think
whatever.
I think
Rest
he
in
did have
piss.
some health complication. I'm pretty sure he did not pass from it.
Okay. Well, if he did, fuck us. The good thing no one watches this show. Yeah, the Knicks, they're the upper side of average, whatever. We don't even talk about them that long. Moving on to Oklahoma City Thunder. Vegas had them at 23.5, and we all thought that they were going to be well under this because we all expected them to be trying to get Wembanyama.
Especially Chet got hurt before too.
Yeah,
that was everything was lined up for them to be a bad team, and they are just about at 500. They're 23 and 24. They're on a 40-game win pace. They are, I think we talked about this last week. They and the Pacers at the time were a half game away from breaking their over-under. They still have not done that because I think both teams have gone winless since then. But sometime in the next couple of weeks,
they probably will win.
Yes, I don't think they're going to lose 40 straight. Be crazy though. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, it's just like, oh, so they're actually going to play Shea, and he's going to play up to like as good as Shea is. Because didn't he like sat last year? Just basically like Shea goes Chandler inactive, tanking. It was like he just didn't play. But
yeah,
I said Kevin Garnett just gave him a shout out. Said that he's been balling too.
Dude's averaging like 31 points per game. You got to give him a fucking shout.
Amazing,
I don't care what the current NBA offense is like. That's absurd.
Yeah, but he's doing that and doing it with like high level IQ plays, and like the offense looks good. It's not just like a dude just getting stats to get stats. Like, and you see it. Like they're
a well-built team.
Yeah.
They're going to be a very good team. I don't know if they're ever going to be a genuine contender, but if they continue to draft well and they trade some of these young guys for legit veteran pieces, like they're going to be set up to contend for a while.
Maybe like a Kevin Durant and James Harden.
Yeah, maybe. What would that look like together? I've never seen that.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, it's like if Chet hits the ceiling, if they continue, I mean, I think like basically if the other players hit that same potential that Shea has hit, not like they'll be as good as him, but like they'll like he's probably hit like the 100th percentile of like what you thought he would be coming out. If other players can get, obviously not to like that level of development, but somewhere close. And yeah, I mean, I don't think they have like 3 Hall of Famers like the old Oklahoma City Thunder, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're one of those teams that like consistently, like the Grizzlies now, they're like consistently one of the top teams in the West. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, it's so rare that you're going to see essentially back-to-back drafts, Durant, Westbrook, Harden. All
that was the same team. You'll never see that again.
Yeah. It's just statistically very unlikely. And a lot of that took jumps. I mean, Durant, we knew who he was going to be. Westbrook ended up being a very different player than we expected him to be. They thought he was going to be a defensive stopper. Nope. And then James Harden, they pegged him as a 6th man of the year forever. And he's arguably should be a multi-time MVP. Yeah. In the playoffs. In the playoffs, I don't even know if I want him as my 6th man.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Magic, a team that we were talking about a minute ago that's very bad. Vegas had them at 26.5. We all took the over.
Smash.
Yeah, I mean, we're still correct about that. They're 18 and 29. They've only got to win 7 or 9 more games in their next 35 or so.
Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero love killing the Celtics. They're 3-0 against them this year.
I was just going to say that. If they just played the Celtics every game, they'd be one of the best teams in the NBA. That's right. I'm petitioning. Get the Magic.
I would love to watch the Celtics just get beat up by the Magic every day of the week.
Get the Magic to the 8 seed. We need to start this campaign now. So then they beat them in the
amazing.
That would honestly be incredible. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. But look, they don't even need the 8 seed. They can be the 10 seed.
That's what I mean.
Get the 10 seed.
Yeah, in the 8 seed in the actual playoffs, they're only 4.5 games back.
If the Magic win. So right now the Magic are predicted on their current pace, they'll project to win 31 games. If they can get to like 35, that's probably 10 seed territory.
Probably. I mean,
that's going to put you ahead of the Wizards. It's going to put you ahead of the Hornets. It's going to put you ahead of. I want to say the Nets so badly, but I won't.
Right now, the
Pistons,
Raptors, the Pistons. Yeah, Pistons are awful.
Bulls right now. The Bulls right now.
The Bulls are the 10 seed at 22 and 24, and the Magic are 4.5 games back. And in between them are the Raptors and the Wizards.
If the Bulls sell their pieces, if the Bulls sell their pieces and the Wizards sell like Kuzma and a couple of the other guys that like they're really
It could
trying
happen.
not to sell, I could absolutely see this happening.
Even the Raptors are like in danger. Obviously, like the report just came out today that someone offered. I think it's kind of.
I think the
BS.
Raptors are going to be a team of eighth graders in the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be a lot of lottery picks.
Yeah,
I think they're going to lose Siakam and OG, and they're going to rebuild around Gary Trent and Scotty Barnes.
Gary Trent, but
yeah, because their value's never going to be higher. They like they're just all on different timelines. Siakam's not young. He's not old, but he's not young.
Well, Gary Trent's younger than I realized. He's only 24. I thought he was older.
Yeah, Elliot said something to us about that in a YouTube comment. I think we talked about him being older. So I'm not even sure what we said.
No,
but he was like, Gary Trent just turned 24 years old.
Yeah,
I know. Seems like a dude that's been around forever, though.
Because like, yeah, because
we
talked
about Portland, right?
Yeah,
he looks old. Yeah. I think he looks old,
and he plays like he's old. Like he doesn't do anything athletic. He just shoots. Yeah, no. When we were talking about the Raptors,
who was the backup guard who was kind of like their shooting guard on the Spurs? Patty Mills. Gary Trent Jr. reminds me of Patty Mills, and I think that's what it is. I think it's because I often confuse him with Patty Mills.
Yeah, I'm shocked to hear that he's 24 years old. I would have guessed that he's like 29.
Yeah, who knew? All right, yeah, let's fingers crossed to the Magic. That's what I want to see now. I've decided I now want the Magic.
It has to happen. It has to happen.
All right, let's move on to the Sixers, Modi's favorite team. Vegas had them at 50.5. Or least favorite team. Yeah, also can be argued. Vegas had them at 50.5. Every one of us smashed the over. Right now they're 30-16, so they're looking good. They're probably going to hit that over. Modi, let's start with you. Anything on the Sixers that you actually want to talk about?
I mean, they look good. It's hard to, as someone that wants to hate everything around the team, they look really good. I mean, like I think the part of it is just you have this like anxiety and anchor wearing you down of like, well, okay, let me see it in the playoffs when Montrezl Harrell is their backup center, and when like we have to see James Harden in another like important playoff series. I think is why it's hard to believe them. But like I was always sold on them in the regular season. They had like an iffy start, which made me question everything, and then but they also like it was really frustrating at the time. But then looking back, it's like, oh, Harden missed a month, Maxey missed a month, Embiid has missed the equivalent of like a month of like separate injuries. So if you just take out the history of the Sixers and like their failures, and you just look at what they've done this year, it's like, oh, that's like a really impressive team. I think I saw a stat. I'm not exactly sure when, like I saw this stat, but they were like end of the year, they had like the hardest strength of schedule. I know they have like a brutal last like 10 to 14 games. So I think that'll probably make or break whether they actually go over or not. But I mean, they should finish with the top 3 seed. And that's like, as we talked about either last week or 2 weeks ago, that's like a huge deal when it comes to playoff seeding.
This current Eastern Conference, that's absolutely necessary.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to add to them. I still am not going to buy it until they win in the playoffs. I'm not going to buy it. But in the regular season, I think all of us were kind of in agreement. Yeah, they're probably going to be really good.
That's the healthy choice for you, I think. I think you probably shouldn't put your heart out there for this team until they give you something to love.
Yeah.
Tarantino's any thoughts on the Sixers?
No, nothing. I mean, just James Harden and Joel Embiid have been ridiculous. Like, I think they're overwhelming, like for pass to points between like Harden and Embiid. I think that leads any other guard center combo, and it like blows it out in the league. Speaking of like guys being able to feed Gobert the ball, with the Anthony Edwards Gobert stats earlier and just how inefficient and terrible it was, like Harden and Embiid have been that much better. And yeah, I mean, like whatever it takes for them to win, sometimes Embiid's got to put up 40 something for them to beat bad teams, but they should do that against bad teams. Like James Harden, I forgot what game it was. He had a ridiculous triple-double, but it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what you need, a guy that can just destroy bad teams. I never worried about picking up like easy wins in the regular season, and in a season like this where it's incredibly important. Yeah, I mean, Sixers are good.
I mean,
with the amount of variance that NBA teams have right now because of the 3-ball and because of the way the fouls are being called, you having a superstar who can on a regular basis go for 40 plus, invaluable.
Yeah, and I will say
there are going to be games.
Their 2-man game has looked phenomenal the past, I mean, they're on a 7-game win streak. That this is the best their 2-man game has looked in any point of their, I mean, granted, it's been like less than a year at this point, but their 2-man game looks phenomenal as of right now.
It honestly feels like it's been longer than that, just because of how long the James Harden saga was between Rockets, Nets, Sixers. But he has not been on the Sixers for long at all.
The trade deadline last year, it was like it's weird to look back on how little time it's been, and like Normally you were like, I just expect these things to gel because these players, I mean, when Harden came to the Nets, immediately he was like an MVP candidate. Like he was immediately incredible. And I think like personally, I also expected that to happen last year. So I think when that didn't happen, it was just kind of frustrating. Like, well, what the hell? But normally these things do take time.
And there's the hamstring injury and
the legendary Houston troll job to get out of there. Yeah.
That was stuffing his shirt with pillows.
In the fat suit that he wore or whatever. Did we ever get confirmation that that was true?
That it was like so. That warm up that he looked
the warm up
like so
gear
big,
that he had
the warm up fat suit.
Yeah. Because then he literally gets to Brooklyn like the next week, and the guy looks as lean as he's ever been.
I do think James Harden's the kind of guy where if he goes on a weekend bender, like he just has the body type.
He just gains it.
He just looks like he's pudgy after like 3 days. Like he looks like he could get a little pudgy.
Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, Zion.
Yeah, people used to always be like Melo's fat. It's like, no, Melo is gigantic, and he wears tons of padding underneath his jersey. He is not fat by any means, but he looks kind of fat.
Yeah, I mean, look at Zion.
My nightmare. All right, let's move on to the Suns, who we talked about a little bit earlier. As we talked about, Vegas had him at 53.5, and Ferentinos took the over. Modi and I each took the under. Right now, they're exactly 500, on pace for 41 wins, which is 12.5 games below what Vegas had them at. Ferentinos, where'd you go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little earlier. Devin Booker being out wasn't good. Team chemistry hasn't been great. And then Chris Paul has also taken a huge step back. Like he's just been terrible. Hasn't been good jump shooting. Hasn't been good in the clutch. They just look like a mess.
Yeah. Basically everything that changed for LeBron when he turned 38 went the opposite way for Chris Paul when he turned 38.
Yeah.
LeBron is now averaging like the highest averages of his career. And Chris
literally
Paul
went up to 27, 8, and 7, right?
Yeah. As of last night or 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
LeBron's averages have finally no longer been 27, 7, and 7, which they've been for, I think, 16 of his 18-year career. It's been 27, 7, and 7.
That's
the fact that it's going up. Like Jordan's like points per game, like how it just fell because he came back to the Wizards to like be tied with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar all time. Like, and LeBron just playing continues to go up. It's nuts. Yeah. He's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, the game's changed in terms of, how primary ball handlers are collecting rebounds and stuff like that. But even still, to be doing that at this point in your career is just wild that your averages would go up at this point.
Yeah. It's amazing. It just sucks that he's rotting on a bad Lakers team for 2 years in a row. Like that part.
Yeah, this is not the ideal Lakers team for this to be happening. If this was the 2020 squad, I mean, the guy would be in MVP contention.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the Suns. There's really nothing to talk about. They're an uninteresting team this year. I've watched a lot of Suns games the past, 5 years. There was a trajectory in previous years. This year, they seem listless. They seem aimless. Jay Crowder doesn't want to be there. He's not playing, even though he would have been starting most of these games. DeAndre Ayton very clearly doesn't want to be there. Devin Booker's been hurt. Things have not been great for them.
There's been trouble with the sale too, right?
Go ahead.
Just with the ownership sale, like, has there been snags?
With the Sarver stuff? I'm not really sure if there's been like turmoil with it, but I can't imagine it's going smoothly because nothing has ever gone smoothly for Robert Sarver. Yeah. Maybe they'll get back in the swing of things next year, but I really do feel like maybe Phoenix missed their window.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, I would say the horrible things that he said ran smoothly out of his mouth, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is like the biggest thing is just Chris Paul. Like he looks like a total shell. Like he was amazing his first 2 years with the Suns. Yeah. Granted, he broke down in the playoffs, but like he was amazing in the regular season. He's just been awful. He looks like he aged 1,000 years since he got COVID in the playoffs last year.
And it's not going to get better because he is a small guard. He's pushing 40. He's still owed, I think, close to $100 million.
Yeah, it's not great.
Things are not great for the Suns. Let's move on to the Portland Trail Blazers. Vegas had him at 39.5. Ferentinos, you took the under. Modi and I each took the over. Right now, they're 22-25, 38 win pace. So right now, it's leaning Ferentinos. It could go either way. They're obviously a game and a half under the Vegas prediction. They're essentially where they should be at this point in the season. There was a brief period where they seemed like they were going to be a contender this year. I think they were like the 3 or 4 seed for a little bit. That has now changed. They're the 11 seed. They're probably not going to pick it back up. Any thoughts on the Blazers?
Yeah, to me, it's just like Dame got hurt. Like when they were good, Dame was healthy. Then he missed time 2 different times with the same calf injury. And I think that was kind of what was tough for them to come back from. I was trying to look up their record in games that Dame's played, because he's played 35 games of the year. So my guess is that they're like probably 2 games above 500 with him, and then whatever 5 games above 500 without. So to me, it's like if he plays the majority of the rest of the season, they'll probably hit their over. And if he doesn't, or even if he misses sometime, then I think they'll probably just hit the under.
Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can pull this up. The Blazers are 17-18 with Dame this season.
That's worse than I thought. I would have guessed that they would be better. So
I mean, I'm assuming a lot of that is likely dealing with lingering aspects of the injury. Looking at this, it seems, I mean, they go on little streaks and then they lose one. They go on streaks, they lose 1 or 2, and then in the past like 10 games, they lost a bunch. Starting on January 4th, they've won 3 out of what looks like 11 games. So they had a really good record up to a point with him, and now they've fallen below 500 because they've lost so many.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know they've been struggling recently. I didn't realize it had been that bad, but that makes sense.
Yeah, they've had a really, really tough January. I'm imagining they're just trying to get out of this month. All right, that's the Blazers. Let's move on to the Kings. This is a fun one. Kings were at 33.5. And I do want to say this. I'm pretty sure, and I don't know if it was 3 of us or 2 of us or 1 of us or whatever. I think we said after we recorded the podcast that we actually wanted to take the over on them. We all took the under. We may have even smashed the under. We smashed the under.
It's smashed.
We ended up changing our minds on that. That over has been smashed. They're currently 27-19. They're on a 48 win pace, which is 14 full games ahead of where they're projected to be. The Kings are incredible. I mean, what's there to say about them? De'Aaron Fox has been unleashed. Sabonis is playing the best basketball of his career. There was a point for the first month and a half in the season where Kevin Huerter was the most efficient shooter in the NBA.
Love the headband.
Harrison Barnes is looking like exactly who they wanted Harrison Barnes to be when they pulled him over. Like
greatest fourth option besides Kevin Durant.
He's the greatest fourth option in the NBA because he's like kind of the ideal version of Wiggins, I guess, a little bit, but I think he can play make a little bit better than Wiggins. Wiggins should have more potential, but he
has a deadly jump shot too when he gets hot.
Yeah, Harrison Barnes, as he stands right now, is exactly what this Kings need him to be because they want the ball to be in Sabonis and Fox's hands more. Yeah, they're really good. They're really good at home too, which we've talked about last episode about the home away splits for these teams. The Kings are one of the bigger examples of that, where their away splits are fairly average or below average. Their home splits are just far and away better.
Yeah, their offense is just incredible. They're like the second best offense in the entire NBA. And like right now they're the 3 seed in the West. And they're 2.5 games up on the 4 seed, which is the Pelicans. So yeah. I mean,
their defense is not good though. Their defense last I looked was 24th.
Yeah. I think it's right now they're 23rd. So like right around.
Oh, they're making progress.
Yeah. Like to me, that's like the past couple of years, their defense has been like 29th or 30th. So that's like a legitimate improvement for them. So that's all they needed was merely below average versus like catastrophic on defense. Because their offense with Sabonis was always you could consider was always going to be good. It was just like, to me, I never bought their defense. And that you are right though. After we recorded that, I just got bought into like, the Kings under. And then like, I was like, they're actually good. I think I like hated that trade for the Halliburton trade, which I mean, everybody did. I'm not unique on that. So I like, to me, I was just like, okay, I'm done with them. Like I'm just out on the Kings.
I placed a $150 bet on them prior to the season starting on them to be a play-in team. Currently, they're the 3 seed.
The 3 seed.
So I might lose that bet on the wrong side of it. I was expecting at best, 7 seed.
It sucks to do like play-in or over.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's what it was.
Well, that's also what somebody placed the bet for me, so I need to have him look into it. But he texted me today and
so your odds must be ridiculous if it's like a specific
that's such a tight window. Yeah.
Let me see what I got it for. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull this up real quick because he sent me the picture of it.
While you're looking, I do want to see the odds on the Magic to make the playoffs because that would be a very fun wager to make. Knowing, like, just looking into it the way we did.
It must be. It says to participate in West play-in tournament, so I think it's just for the tournament.
What were the odds?
Yeah.
Just 155 plus 155.
That
But it's
seems-
because at the time Vegas had their over under, they were still at 33.5. So it was basically they were expected at that time to be the 11 seed. And so basically the hope was this team ends up being a 9 or 10 seed to be on the like bad end of the play-in tournament. Like I said, they're the 3 seed. So things have played out very differently than anybody predicted.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that makes sense. That seems like not that great value for such a like.
It's probably not great value. I
Like-
probably should have just bet on them I should have just bet the over for that. I should have bet the over like plus a certain amount.
Yeah.
But
So cool, just Kings fact. Son of legend Peja Stojakovic, Andrej Stojakovic, and Bronny James were McDonald's All-Americans.
oh really?
I did not
Yeah.
see that.
I
That's
saw
funny.
Gilbert Arenas is
Dude, I wonder if
son
his jump
is-
shot is wet. I'm about to look up some Andrej Stojakovic highlights.
People
I
were
love
posting
Peja.
stuff about Gilbert Arenas' son on Twitter a day or two ago. Apparently he's a 4 or 5 star recruit. So,
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
Dude, I bet he's
So
got
we
a
might
nice
see
jump
another
shot.
we might see another Arenas in the in the
No
NBA
chill
soon.
Gil.
Yeah.
Agent Zero.
Hibachi. No one has more nicknames
Yeah.
than Gil.
Hibachi's
Um,
cool.
Hibachi's a
Cool
good
nickname.
one.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Spurs. Got to clap for the Kings a little bit, but let's move on to the Spurs. Vegas had them at 22.5. We all smashed the under. Right now they're 14-33, so they're on pace for 24. And I think this one's kind of an example of even really bad NBA teams are probably going to win
Still
like
fall
20
into
games.
wins. Yeah.
So taking the under on 22.5 may have been it might have been risky from each of us. Hopefully none of us actually put money on this. They've been fine. They started off really hot, and since then they've been bad.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, I mean, there's no perfect way to look at these numbers, but like just looking at current record is a little bit flawed because of that
Sure.
exact reason. Like they started hot and then they've been horrible since. So I still think if I were to guess right now, I would still say they'd probably go under because right now they're like
That's
on a
possible.
2-game pace to hit the over. So
Yeah.
it's not like they're trending significantly towards the over.
I think they've won 7 games in the past 2 months, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. I think in
'Cause they-
December and January they've won in total 7 games.
I
They
think they're
started
gonna
off
be
like
sell-
3-1 or 3-0 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point they were like 7-5 or something
Yeah.
like that, and since then they've gone like 7-28.
And they're going to be
that-
sellers at the trade deadline. I think they'll get rid of Jacob Puddle or whatever. So like,
Jakob Poeltl, come on,
Jakob
have some
Poeltl.
respect.
We've been over this. His name
Jakob
is Jakob
Poeltl.
Poeltl.
Jacob Poeltl.
You so badly want to call him Jacob.
Although one of my favorite trolls is to mispronounce people's names the way that they're spelled. Like I always call him Batum, Nicholas Batum, because it's just a fun thing to do.
Gotta bait him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Batum guy.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
there's
great.
not really a whole lot we really need to say about the Spurs. They're bad. They're going to
Yeah.
continue to be bad. See him in 3 years.
I say my dad will just like, for whatever reason, he just with some names cannot get it right. Like Sam Darnell.
Well, he's a boomer.
It's Darnold, but no matter what, it's like Sam Darnell. And I'm like, I just don't know why
Dude,
every
my
time.
mom-
It's not even spelled that way.
My mom's the same way. There's some names she just refuses to get right. Just like she always calls Deshaun Jackson. It's like he's not a mustard. It's not Deshaun.
There's some potential like brand pollination there, cross brand pollination. Maybe he should be advertising mustards
Yeah.
when he's not busy, hating the Jews.
Yeah. Him and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, and just so many people. Let's move on to the Toronto Raptors. Vegas had them at 45.5.
This one hurts.
This one's tough. This one's tough for us guys because we all took the over and they're currently 21-27 for a 36-win pace. And we were talking not 10 minutes ago about how they're probably going to sell off their best assets and just pick up lottery picks. The Raptors suck. Elliot, I'm sorry. They're really bad. They're not going to get better. This season's shot. What is there to say about the Raptors?
I blame Zach Lowe because he was one of their favorite overs on his over under podcast that he did. So this actually wasn't my fault at all. It was Zach Lowe's fault that that I got this wrong. Yeah. So it was we basically, well, I was going to say we beat ourselves, but I'm actually saying the opposite of that to make a joke to before we started recording. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I think I just have I've fallen in love with how good they are, like drafting and developing with Masai Ujiri. So I was just like, whenever in doubt, just trust the Raptors to figure it out, unless they're playing in Tampa Bay.
And
Every
I
other
feel
year-
like you look at that roster
It's a good
It's
roster.
and you
good.
say this is a 45-win minimum roster. It's a
Yeah.
good roster with a lot of good pieces, but they're exhausted. They're injured. The the schemes aren't working out. There's probably issues with like people knowing that like I might get traded. It's just been a weird year.
Just a broken season.
Yeah. And they're doing it in Toronto, so they don't even have the excuse that they had when they were in Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the Jazz, our second to last team. Vegas had them at 26.5. We all smashed the under. They are at 25-25, so they are a game and a half away.
They were one of my favorite teams, though, after making this prediction. So I wasn't.
They've got 32 games they've got 32 games left to win 1.5 games. Is where they're at right now. I think they're probably going to do it.
Lauri Markkanen is a beast.
Lauri Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, a lot of guys on the team that can
Walker Kessler. That guy's a stud.
Walker Kessler, yeah.
I feel like
top 3 seed in the
Kessler Edwards for the Nets. That's what always confuses me. It's like Walker Kessler Edwards.
Is Kelly Olynyk on that team?
Yeah.
Another guy that I hate.
Fits on the Jazz though. He's like a Jazz Celtics
because
guy.
He's white
and he looks like Canada. He looks like a centaur.
And he looks like a dirtbag.
Yeah. And he ripped Kevin Love's shoulder out of his socket.
Shoulder out. Yeah.
He is a dirtbag.
Yeah.
He attacks men that are more handsome than him. I hate that guy.
Well, doesn't take that. I mean, he's attacking everyone.
Jeez. Shots fired.
Now I was watching because the Nets went 0-3 after Kevin Durant went down. So I was like, this is going to be another complete meltdown. But Kyrie Irving's put the team on his back the past few games. And one of them was against the Jazz. And literally whenever they needed a bucket, like.
Was that his 40-point performance?
Yeah. And then the next night, I think he had 38.
Back
so
yeah,
like it was literally against the Warriors and then against the Jazz. He loves killing the Warriors. It's fun.
They've got history.
Yeah. But the Jazz, like, Markkanen gets open on a spot on the 3-point line. Like, he just has such a high release, catch and release. Like, that's a bucket. They're just still a lot of fun to watch offensively. Definitely outperforming themselves, and it might hurt them in the long run because they missed out on the sweepstakes. But they still acquired a bunch of picks in the offseason, and the future is definitely bright.
If you think Lauri Markkanen has all NBA potential, then you commit. Kind of like, obviously the Thunders didn't do this when it comes to SGA, but the Jazz are kind of taking the opposite view of it, where it's like, we might as well try and win now, right? Especially with how open the West is.
Yeah, I still wonder if they're going to sell. Danny Ainge is going to be like this. Like, what's the point of getting the play in? Especially with like no one aside from Lauri Markkanen is probably going to be part of any type of future rebuild there. Like maybe Colin Sexton, but still probably not. Like, it's just like a random hodgepodge of like veteran players that have just somehow meshed together really well. Like, they're probably going to trade Mike Conley. Apparently they love Jordan Clarkson. So I don't know if they're going to end up trading him or not.
He seems like he's found his best ball in Utah, which I don't think anyone on earth would have predicted for Jordan Clarkson of all people, that he would be thriving ever in his life in Utah.
Well, he needs to be removed from all distractions.
Exactly. He needed to go to the most boring place in America.
Just go and hang out with some Mormons. All right, let's move on to the final team. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say before we move on to the Wizards, didn't J.R. Smith say that about like the Cavs, like why he started playing well? It's like it's in Cleveland, man.
Ain't shit to do in Cleveland. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, baby. All right, let's move on to the Wizards. Vegas had them at 35.5. You both took the under. I took the over. I was super high on this team. Currently, they're 20-26 for a 36-win pace. So technically, they are on pace to hit the over. However, they are another team that had a hot start at one point. I think they were 10-3. They have regressed significantly since then. Obviously, in that time, they've gone 10-23. They just traded Rui Hachimura to the Lakers. They might trade Kyle Kuzma. They might try and trade Kristaps Porzingis. They cannot trade Bradley Beal because of the no trade clause, and also he just wants to continue to lose in Washington. I don't even know what to say about this Wizards team because I would like them to hit the under. Like, even though that I predicted the over, my preference would be for them to be far under this so that they get a good pick in the lottery. I think that they're going to be right there at this number when we get to May and when the season ends, because they're poorly managed. They're going to be, Vegas had them at 35.5. They're probably going to be a 33 or 34 win team, which is the absolute worst thing you can be in the NBA.
They'll finish
and they
like
might be a play-in team.
Yeah.
And that sucks. That's bad. That's bad management.
Yeah, do you think they're actually going to sell? Like, it's just so unlike the Wizards to ever do that. Didn't they just come out and say that they're not trading Kuzma?
They did. And they always say they're not going to sell. They literally always say they're not going to tank. They say they're not going to sell assets. You know, it's always these like progressive rebuilds so that they can win at most 38 games. And I've talked about this so many times on this show that I'm not going to talk about it again. But I just don't understand how you can look at every other team in the league and see that every other team is committed to tank sometimes, including good organizations like the Warriors and the Celtics
And the
Spurs. The Spurs are fucking tanking.
Yeah.
And it works for them. It's how they got Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
Like, understand that this is how the game works.
And you can't use the excuse of like, oh, we don't have, like, we're not in a great basketball city. It's not in a great market. Like, okay, so San Antonio, Oklahoma City Thunder is the better market.
And also the DMV is a great basketball area for everything except for the Wizards.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
the college teams do well there. A lot of players come out of the DMV. For as small as the area is, we have a lot of really good players come out of the area.
Kevin Durant.
But none of them ever want to go to the Wizards. And there's a reason for that. Oh, I'm so glad to be done with these over-unders. I hate that we have to finish with the Wizards every time. Next time, let's do opposite. Let's do opposite.
It was the Lakers last episode and Wizards this one.
That's true. 15 and 30 on the alphabetical order. That's is tough. Frustrating for me.
We'll start Z to A next time. So we both start with the Wizards and Lakers.
We'll get them out of the way early so I can just be angry for the rest of the episode. All right. That's all of them. We've still got, like I said, about 35 games left to go in the season. Some teams have probably closer to 38. Some are probably closer to 32. Next week, we'll be back and we're going to do power rankings. We're probably going to do either the top 10 or top 12 teams across both conferences in totality about who we think is going to finish with the best records and how we think they're going to do in the playoffs. And then the week after that, I'm pretty sure we're in the All-Star break or we're coming up on it. So maybe we'll do something for the All-Star break. But if you are still listening and you have not already done so, make sure you click that like button, click subscribe, comment below. If there's anything that you disagree with that we said, if Elliot, you want to talk about the Raptors, you're more than welcome to do so. But make sure that you're also sharing this with your NBA loving friends. And we'll be back next week. Appreciate y'all tuning in.
See ya.
Adios.